So Charles done it. Pole for his home Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix, no less. Pole for Ferrari. Ferrari won 3, Charles and Carlos Sainz in P3. Fabulous qualifying session for them, but it wasn't easy. For Charles, there was an engine change just before qualifying. That's always unsettling. Unsettling for the mechanics who have to do the perfect job. Unsettling for the driver because everything felt right, and now there's an engine change. And then he had a plastic bag on the front wing in Q1. That got removed, and he wasn't brilliant in Q1, but he did well enough, comfortably quick enough to get through into Q2. But then in Q3, something in the footwell area, and the Ferrari guys now reckon it probably cost him half a second. So although he got the pole with something in the footwell area. Incredibly good job to do that. Nothing more unsettling than having something moving around, probably a little bolt or something like that in the footwell area. As it turned out, his first run, getting used to that footwell area drama, would have been enough to put him on the pole, but just to be sure, he did a 10.2. As I say, I think without that, he probably would have done a 9.8, 9.9 to really cement pole and to cement his position as the preeminent driver-car combination in Monaco this weekend. Really made the most of it. So great job by Charles Leclerc. A lot of things to overcome, and it's never easy at Monaco, never easy with traffic as well. Talked to Fernando Alonso, didn't get out of Q1 for the traffic. Sergio Perez, similar story. Very disappointing for Aston Martin that, because the car, again in FP3, looked as if it was quite capable of getting comfortably into Q3 and possibly even with a good lap for Fernando to be somewhere in the top 2 or 3 rows of the grid, as I said this morning. But let's not detract from the day of Ferrari, that fabulous lap by Charles with that drama, and Carlos Sainz backing him up in P3, staying away from the guardrails, doing a really, really good job under what is becoming an increasingly pressure-filled time for him at Ferrari. Imagine what it's like going to Monaco, Charles' hometown. Carlos is the guy that's got to leave the team at the end of the year. He's still got to be very close to the team, work closely with the engineers, work with the mechanics. He's got to keep the car away from the wall. He's got to be quick. It's a lot of things that he has to be balancing there. And I thought he did a superb job with that. Putting Charles to one side, beaten only by Oscar Piastri, who was superb in the McLaren-Mercedes. As I said this morning, watching him yesterday, it was as if he was just learning from Charles Leclerc and watching the way Charles was driving. And no surprise at all to see him that quick. McLaren really, really good in Sector 2, which is all about traction. Obviously turn-in as well, but traction is really paramount in Sector 2, and that was what was killing Red Bull, and McLaren much, much better. One of the cars with a pretty good top speed on other circuits, but still with great traction, almost doing what Red Bull used to do in terms of being able to manipulate all of the different parameters around the car. But Red Bull worked very hard on getting Sector 2 to work, but for Max it was right on the edge. And at the end of FP3, when he was staying out trying to put in more laps on a new set of softs, he said, if I do any more laps, I'm probably going to go off. And it's very unusual to hear Max say that, Mr. Manipulation, getting the car nice and flat and rotating it when he feels the perfect moment. But he was right up against a brick wall in terms of what he could do. Consistently, he was super, super quick in Sector 1. And indeed, in Q3, he was quickest by 0.2, which is a massive amount just in one sector alone, all about high speed into the Casino Square area. But then when it came down to a little bit of turn into traction, slow corner stuff, Red Bull, very, very difficult. Max unable to do anything about that. So when he went into his last run, in an attempt to get the pole, quite obviously, the only place where he felt he could make up time was braking late into Saint-Avold, which is always a trap. It's negative camber going in there. It's shade as well from the trees and the building, so the track temperature is slightly different on that bit of road where you're braking into Saint-Avold. And it caught out the great Max Verstappen. I was quite surprised that that was where he chose to try to find a little bit more time, because in my view it was never going to happen. Sector 1 he'd already got nailed. All he needed to do was find time in Sector 2 somehow, or Sector 3, as they were saying to him on the radio. And as he did so decisively last year in Sector 3, going into and out of Rascasse. But he lost it. He drifted slightly wide and then hit the guardrail, and that was it. And his second run was lost. And in the end, that dropped him way down to P6, a long time since Max has qualified so badly for Red Bull. But they were right on the edge in terms of what they could do with the car, given the parameters that they settled on at the beginning of 2024. Roll on Canada, roll on Barcelona if you're a Red Bull fan, because obviously the car's going to be quick there again. But here at Monaco, as I say, with no straight to speak of, it was always going to be difficult for them to maximise the other aspects of their car, which already have been compromised by the overall concept. And I think that McLaren got away with it is an indication that McLaren is still not quite as quick, if you like, as Red Bull in a straight line. Sort of relative results in reverse, if you see what I mean. George Russell was the quicker of the two Mercedes drivers by just under a tenth, probably accounted for by the new wing he had that Lewis didn't. Interesting choice that they gave it to George. But not a bad qualifying session for them. They'll be disappointed that they weren't there certainly with Ferrari and McLaren, where really they should be when Red Bull are having a bad weekend. But George and Lewis will start 5th and 7th. And in the remaining 3 places in that Q3 session, really good performances by Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly. 3 racing drivers who are out there just dragging a time out of the car, and very well deserved too, in the context of drivers like Daniel Ricciardo and say Lance Stroll in a pretty good car not getting through into Q3. The 2 Haas-Ferrari drivers did a really good job in Q1, always looked quick, but it kind of ran out of steam after that, didn't get out of Q2. But again, a very, very good result for that relatively under-financed team with the Dallara chassis. Fernando and Sergio Perez, as I say, didn't get out of Q1, blaming traffic. And the 2 Stake Saubers, sadly, were way off the pace. Valtteri didn't help things by going off this morning. Well, hitting the curb, coming out the exit of the swimming pool and breaking the right front suspension didn't help at all. And Guanyu Zhou never seemed to be in it from the first moment of qualifying. So that was it. Qualifying, a mini race. FP3 as well was a mini race because everybody was just running softs all the time, trying to get a setup, trying to get a free lap, trying to see where they were going to be for qualifying. And qualifying, of course, was all about defining the grid that will play such an important role in the outcome of the race tomorrow. No real incidents in qualifying in terms of red flags coming out at the wrong moment. But for Charles Leclerc, a lot of things that he had to overcome. We'll see tomorrow if he can parlay that pole into a win. Basically, all he has to do is lead off the line and then control the pace of the race and win it. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Yeah, well, as we saw from qualifying today, a lot of variables can still come into play at Monaco. We'll see then. Thanks to Pitbox, to Jetcraft and to OEM Exclusive and to you, the viewer. See you tomorrow.